So you should, on your screen now, be able to see my slides and me as well. Can somebody just give me in the chat the thumbs up, a yes, that you can in fact see me on video and you can see the slides on the screen. Lots of people saying yes, clicking the hand raise. Looks like we're in business. So first of all, thank you. Thanks, Simon. Really appreciate you inviting me here to share with your community for a little while this morning, Saturday morning. I like the idea of this Saturday session thing. I believe it's a new concept that you're doing, but I really, really like it. So, and it seems like lots of other people do too, because good use of your time on a Saturday morning to invest in your learning, your development. So lots of other people agreeing, yes, it's a good time slot, and they agree it's good, Simon. So I don't know if you might hate me now because it means you've got to keep doing it, but I do think it's great because, let's face it, most of the time, Monday to Friday, people are super busy with business and school runs and all those other things. I think it's a really good slot. So thanks for putting it on. So the title of this presentation is How to Start, Grow and Scale an Expert Business from 0 to 7 Figures Fast. Now, I really believe that anybody can start, grow and scale an expert business. I believe everybody has expertise that's highly valuable to the world, whether that's in the areas of health and fitness, relationships, whether it's business growth, whether it's marketing. I believe everyone's got experience, everyone's got references, everyone's had life experiences that are valuable that many other people haven't. And I believe that now more than ever, there's a massive opportunity for us to build a business around that expertise and do something that we love to do. So what I'm going to attempt to do this morning is, in a short space of time, give you as much as I can, give you as much as I've learned over the last 12, 13 years now that I've been running various different business in this industry, two of which have now become multi-7-figure businesses. So to start off with, what I want to do is just highlight, underline what I see as the 3 phases of building an expert empire. The mistake I see a lot of people make is they try and run before they can walk. They're trying to create a business that's scalable worldwide, globally, that can impact millions of people and generate many millions of pounds in revenue before they've even tested the concept to start with. It's funny, I was listening to a podcast last week, and the guest was one of the founders of Netflix, and he was sharing, and this baffled me. He was sharing that when he started Netflix, I think there was a couple of other people involved. They weren't trying to build a global brand. I mean, Netflix is one of the best known brands on the planet now. They weren't trying to build that. To start off with, they were just trying to create easier access to people of movies, TV shows, whatever. It wasn't about being this huge global brand, which is now worth, I don't even know. It's hundreds of, I think it's like $200-300 billion or something crazy. They were. What I always say is, think big, start small. And so that, hopefully that's a preface to what I'm about to say, which is there's 3 phases of building an expert empire as I see it. And these are the 3 phases that I've been through on numerous occasions. I've also seen a lot of people in our industry struggle and stutter because they did these things in the wrong order. I've seen certain people in our industry really fly, and it's quite common in my mind that they tend to use these 3 phases step by step. So phase 1 is what I call startup. So the 3 phases are start, grow and scale. I've already told you that. But the first phase of startup, there are some key principles that are most important in the startup phase. So, by the way, I think there are lots of different things that are always important, but there are 2 key principles that I think are most important in the startup phase, which are specialize and focus on sales. So if all you did at phase 1 was went, right, I'm going to focus on being a specialist in a certain area. I'm not just going to be a business coach or a life coach. I'm not just going to be, a personal trainer. I'm not just going to teach internet marketing broadly. I'm going to specialize in one key area. And then you just focus on making sales of that product or service. I think more people would succeed. I think there's too many people trying to be all things to all people. So in startup phase, become a specialist, focus on, you've probably heard it a million times, niching, work out who your ideal client is, what their biggest pains are, what results you can get them. And the more specific you can get, the better. And then focus, I think 80% of your time and energy should then go into generating sales. Once you've done that, once you've successfully navigated through that startup phase and you've got proof of concept because you've made some sales, then you move into phase 2, which is what I call growth. And in the growth phase, selling is still important. It's still important all the way through. But the primary focus, I think, shifts, or at least it did for me, and I've noticed it's done a lot for people that I've worked with. The primary focus shifts in phase 2 to marketing and money. So if you specialize and sell to get started, the way you then grow that is by marketing. So reaching more people broadly, and managing money better so that you can reinvest in marketing, so that you can reinvest in growing, in maybe starting to hire some people as well at that point, or outsourcing certain roles, responsibilities, tasks. And then phase 3 is to really then scale. So you've already got a proven concept. You've proven that not only can you sell it to a handful of people, but you've built a client base in the growth phase and you've managed to market it out. We're going to talk about all of this in more depth, by the way. I'm giving you what I'm trying to do here is give you a broad overview so that then the more tactical stuff that I'm going to talk to you about the rest of this session is going to make more sense. So phase 3 is scale. And the primary focus then should be, well, 3 things. People, because if you're going to scale, it can't just be about you anymore. Processes, so having things in place. I know Simon and the Internet Business School talk a lot about automated marketing processes and systems and things like that. And then the planning process as well. So being able to plan long-term for strategic growth. What I can tell you from my own personal experience is the reason I've had relatively decent amounts of success in the startup and growth phases throughout my career is because I did just this. I focused on specializing and selling to start with. I then got better at the marketing bit. I got stuck for a number of years, could not break through the ceiling of like mid 6 figures, couldn't get to 7 figures in annual revenue. And the things that held me back are those things I'm mentioning in phase 3. I didn't bring enough people in. It was too heavily reliant upon me. I'm just not naturally wired to be good at building systems and processes. So I've brought people in that are. And my greatest strength is probably that I think very short term. So I'm good at delivering results quickly. My biggest weakness is that I think short term. So I had a lack of long-term planning. And so when I started to bring a longer term strategic planning process in place, we very, very quickly started to scale the business to 7 figures, to multi-7 figures, to where it is today. By the way, I know that we've already got someone here, Anwar, asking questions. What I'm going to do, if I've got time at the end, hopefully I will have, I'm happy to take questions. So I am going to answer this one though. And I think, Anwar, you were talking about how would specializing look to a business-to-business digital marketing agency. I think that's the question. So my answer, Anwar, would be that you might specialize in one area of digital marketing. So maybe, I've got clients that do this, by the way. I got a client, he's 18 years of age, and he's doing about 25 grand a month in revenue at 18 years of age. And he does Facebook and Instagram ads for scalp micropigmentation clinic owners. So basically people that do hair replacement therapy. He does Facebook and Instagram ads for them. He doesn't do Facebook and Instagram ads for any other type of clinic or any other type of client, just them. I got another client who she's kind of become known as the queen of LinkedIn, if you like, here in certainly in the UK. She's got clients all over the world. So they're a digital marketing agency for people that want to use LinkedIn more effectively. So Richard, I'll tell you what, remind me, Richard, at the end, I'll introduce you to his name's Michael Keenan. He's brilliant. But I don't think there are many, just to hammer this point home, I don't think there are many 18-year-olds who are able to build an agency up to, he's multi six figures now, 250,000, 300,000 a year, and growing fast by just being a digital marketing agency. So I believe specializing is the key to starting up and getting rapid growth. Now, could he build that into a multi-seven-figure business in that specialist area? Maybe not. In order to grow and scale, he might need to diversify. He might need to start working with not just scalp micropigmentation clinics. He might need to start working with different type of cosmetic clinics in order to scale and grow. He might then ultimately become I suppose, a much less niche, much more all-service based offering digital marketing agency, but to start with, specialized. So thanks for the question, Anwar. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share with you how I started from zero and grew to, I've actually built 5 different businesses based on expertise, if you like, but 2 of them have become multi-seven-figure businesses. So I'm going to focus on that. And what I always like to do in my training, in my delivery, is like not make this whole thing about my story. So I've also got a couple of other examples. I mean, I just shared one, which wasn't planned, but I like to use examples of other people, other businesses in other niches that I'm not in, as examples, as kind of case studies for you. So I'll give you a few examples from my own personal experience, but also some from others as well. But my outcome here is to give you a framework. Effectively, what I'm going to give you is the 8 key disciplines that I think you need to excel in if you're going to start, grow, scale a business based on your expertise. So before I dive in any further, I'm curious. I'd just like to ask you all a question, if that's okay. And my question is really, just give me a quick yes in the comments if you consider yourself to be an expert business. In other words, you're selling information, coaching, consulting, you're a speaker, you're a trainer, you're an author, maybe you're an agency, you provide services, you've got a podcast, like you're in the business of education, information, helping people get a result. In other words, you're selling services, you're selling intangibles, you're not selling physical goods, you're not selling pens, or you're not selling physical goods like baseball caps. This is a new baseball cap that we just called, which has got Empire Builder on it. This is something we give to our clients and our staff. So we're not selling physical goods, we're selling information, expertise. Yeah, cool. Quite a lot of you. Good. So, and I really believe that if you're not, this is a great bolt-on business. I've worked with a lot of successful business owners who have then created a second stream of income or a third stream of income by selling their expertise. So as an example, someone who's built a successful hair salon then has an expert business that creates a second stream of income where they teach marketing to hair salon owners, for example. So I think there's a great opportunity for anybody who has already a business, who has already certain skills to start, grow, scale an expert business. So here's how I started from zero and grew a couple of multi-seven-figure expert businesses. And like I said, I'm going to share a few other examples of people that are in different niches to me. So you've got a wide, I suppose, a wide spectrum of examples that might be relevant to as many of you as possible. So first of all, how I actually started and got into this space in the first place was I was fortunate enough to go to a Tony Robbins seminar when I was 12 years of age. So I'm wondering, give me a hand raise if you're familiar with Tony Robbins. You've maybe listened to his stuff, been to his seminars, read his books. Wow, like my whole screen is filling up with hand raises. Good. So we're, and a lot of people saying they love Tony. By the way, you might love him, you might not like Tony. It's kind of personal preference thing. But I was very fortunate. My mum, when I was a kid in the early 90s, my mum got into the kind of Tony Robbins reading his books, listening to tape sets. Remember when tape sets were around? And invited me to come with her to Hawaii to go to a Tony Robbins seminar, which is pretty cool when you're 12 years of age. And I didn't know anything about any of this, but I was like, look, I can basically skip school for 2 weeks and go to Hawaii. Like, how bad could it be? So off I went, and that was my first kind of exposure. And I'm guessing that many of you can probably recall your first exposure to learning about mindset, personal development, business, marketing. And Tony, of course, is probably best known on the planet. I know Simon has spoken at events where Tony's been one of the headline speakers. So, he's built this huge expert business. He's actually a great example, I think, of somebody that's started, grown, scaled, and become like a worldwide authority in his field. And actually, a lot of what I'm going to share with you today, I think you could look at someone like Tony Robbins and you could see how he's applied what I'm going to share. So I was fortunate to be around Robbins and learn NLP and all of this stuff from a very young age, all the way through my teens. I went to school and college and university for a couple of years before I dropped out. That's a different story. But alongside that, I was getting this education around mindset, which was highly valuable. I think it has given me a large advantage in business, in life. And really, what I learned and mastered through my teenage years was the first of the 8 pillars I'm going to share with you, which is what I call performance. So I believe that I could spend time today teaching you the very best of what I know when it comes to marketing campaigns and tactics and how to decide upon your niche and make sales and bring in clients and get them great results. But all of that is useless if you don't have this bit first. If you're not, especially if you're the face of the business, especially if you're teaching, training, educating people on things like health and fitness, especially if you're teaching people about mindset yourself, if you're teaching people about growing a business or becoming financially free or wealthy through property or stocks or whatever it might be, your performance, I believe, is the factor that has the greatest impact on your results. Like, I can give you the best marketing strategy in the world, but if your performance isn't up to scratch, it won't help you. So a question I always like to ask, and I'd love you to humor me and answer in the chat, is on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 is you are performing at your absolute best, energy's great, mindset strong, you're productive, you're efficient, you're effective with your time. 0 is you can barely get out of bed in the morning, demotivated, you procrastinate, your energy's poor, you've got negative thoughts going on in your mind. How are you performing right now, 0 to 10? Just drop a number in the chat for me. How are you performing? Scale of 0 to 10. Thank you. By the way, I can see loads of numbers coming in. Thank you, everybody, for your honesty as well. I'm seeing a wide range. So I'm seeing as low as a 3 and as high as a 9. And by the way, thanks for sharing, and I appreciate you playing full out here and interacting with me. It's I can't wait to get back to live events, because normally I'm asking these questions in front of a room full of hundreds of people. So it's cool though to still be able to do this, of course, with you here. So a lot of different answers, a lot of different numbers, ranging from, like, I think I saw a 1 up to 9s and 10s. And so the question really, and this is a rhetorical question for you to consider yourself, is what are the key things for you individually that cause that score to be high or low? And those are the things that I would suggest you focus on. So for me in particular, this is just me. I'm not here to tell you how you could increase or should increase your performance, but I know that my performance is impacted dramatically based upon nutrition, exercise, hydration, sleep. I've started paying a lot more attention to my sleep recently. I've even got this little gizmo here called a Whoop strap, which helps me track my sleep patterns on an app on my phone. I've become more and more, funnily enough, I mean, I've known about performance and mindset and learned NLP from a very young age. I'm now in my late 30s and I've become probably more obsessed with it now than ever, because I'm always trying to get an extra edge somehow. I've built a couple of fairly successful businesses and I go, right, so how can I now raise my performance even more? So those are things that are important to me, but of course, different for everyone. Some people, by the way, the reason why your performance score is low is because you lack clarity in your strategy. And so having greater clarity on your strategy would mean that when you sit down at your workspace, whatever that is every day, you've got clarity on what you need to do so you can be productive and efficient. But you're unclear, you're confused, you're overwhelmed, you don't know where to start, therefore your performance suffers. For others, it might be health, wellness, fitness, nutrition, sleep. Everyone's different. So look, it would be remiss of me to talk about how to start, grow, and scale a business and not mention this, because I do believe genuinely it's the most important thing. I know people, and bear in mind, a lot of my clients, people I work with, are in the mindset, personal development, health, wellness space. I know people who have built successful businesses who, by their own admission, would say they are by no means the best marketers in the world, by no means the best salespeople in the world, but they've nailed this. They show up at a 10 out of 10. They perform at a high level, and they're like magnets. They just attract people towards them that want to work with them. They go, how on earth are you so energetic every day? I want to work with you. Like, I want you to coach me. I want you to teach me how. And they just attract business even without great marketing. Now, I don't think that's a recipe for success when it comes to growing and scaling. But without this, the best strategy, the best skill set in the world won't help you if the mindset isn't there. That said, the mindset without the skill set isn't that useful either. So what I'm trying to give you here today is I suppose an overview of the key principles that I think you have to master. So the first one certainly is performance. I don't think you can really get out the blocks unless you're good at managing your energy, your state, your mindset, and also are able to focus and deliver the actions, the tasks that you need to succeed in business. So that's the first one. Second one, and by the way, these two are quite closely linked. I don't think it's a coincidence. You've probably heard this a million times. There's a few variations of this, but effectively, the people you surround yourself with are who you become. Or the most reliable indicator of somebody's personal income is to take the 6 people that they spend most time with, total up their personal incomes and average it out. That's the most accurate indicator of somebody's personal income if you didn't look at them as an individual. So I think the people you surround yourself with is critical. And again, I think my big advantage when I was starting my first proper business, which was, like I say, 12, 13 years ago now, 2008, is that I'd had at that time probably 10 years of being around a great peer group, 10 years of studying, learning from, being around the best people in the world when it comes to performance and mindset and energy. And so I built up a peer group of people who were already very successful. I built up a peer group of people who were brilliant marketers, speakers, salespeople. And so being around them caused me to raise my game. It normalized success. This is something that I've been talking a lot on. I know Simon's been on a little bit on the new app Clubhouse. I've been on there a fair bit as well. And I've been talking a lot with various different people who have built successful businesses. And one of the key principles certainly that everyone has in common is that they've built a really strong peer group. And when they started, they were around people that meant that success was normal, because they were around people who'd already succeeded. And that was certainly the case for me. It didn't feel weird to me to be thinking about building £1 million plus business when I was in my late teens, early 20s, because I knew people that had already done it. And the second piece is that I was also able then, when I started a business from scratch in 2008, I built up connections and relationships with people that I could collaborate with. So, I managed to get my first few clients were people I already knew. And I think that's probably likely to be the case for most people in the startup phase. Is the likelihood is that the first couple of people you might recruit and bring in as clients are probably people you already know. So I do think peer group's critical. And actually, I was introduced to Simon by a mutual friend of ours called Andy Harrington, who some of you might know, might have seen Andy speak at events alongside Simon before. He's spoken at some of ours. And actually, the big shift for me in peer group, I mentioned that I was around Tony Robbins throughout my teenage years. In my early 20s, I actually went and worked for Andy in his company in sales. And immediately I went from a peer group of people that I'd grown up with, who I'd been to school with, people that I'd been to university with, who were in the main not successful and quite poor and hadn't started and built businesses. I moved my entire life from Birmingham, which is where I'm from and where I live now. I moved my entire life down to Kent, found a place to live, worked for Andy, and got around. Yeah, Andy was already running or had built up a multi-seven-figure business of his own. So immediately I'm around, again, people that are successful. So I really believe that getting around people who are, I guess, people that have already achieved the goals you want to achieve is probably your fastest route. This is, by the way, why I created Expert Empires. So Simon mentioned that right at the start, he's spoken a few of our Expert Empires events. And, we've had Gary Vaynerchuk and Lord Sugar and Grant Cardone and David Goggins. And we've had phenomenal speakers. We've got some amazing speakers booked to headline our event next month in April, which is a virtual event. It's the first time we've ever done it live, online, internationally. But the reason I created Expert Empires was so that, especially here in the UK, people would have a place to come together in a community, learn from the best in the world, and also create that peer group. I know a lot of people that come to our events that, yes, of course, they come and learn great strategies and tactics from our speakers, but actually the main reason they come is the peer group. The main reason they come is the community of people who are potential partners, joint venture partners, strategic partners. They can collaborate. They might even become clients. So there's a lot of opportunity to do business when you're around the right people. So I really believe that peer group is a critical factor when it comes to starting, growing, scaling your business. So the question you want to ask yourself is like, who could you spend more time around? Who now that you already know, could you spend more time around that would likely raise your game? And by the way, I actually believe that a well-rounded peer group is made up of three different types of people. Of course, the assumption, or I suppose what's talked about a lot is getting a peer group of people that are playing a bigger game. But I actually think it's healthy to have a well-rounded peer group of what I call mentors, people that are playing a bigger game, mentees, people who you can support, inspire, educate, effectively bring them along on the journey because you've got experience they haven't. And then mastermind. So mentors, people that are playing a bigger game, mentees, people that you can pull up along with you, and mastermind are people that are already at your level and you can kind of have some healthy competition, some collaboration, partner together to grow together. And I've certainly throughout my career built all three of those to create what I believe is a really well-rounded peer group. I think a lot of people create a peer group which is all based on being around people playing a bigger game, or all based on people who, it makes them feel significant because they've achieved more than the people they're around, but then there's no stretch, there's no development. That was Andy, by the way. I had a slide in case people didn't know what Andy looked like. That's what Andy Harrington looks like if you haven't met him before. Third thing is profile. Now, this is now where we're getting more into, I suppose, parts 1 and 2 are really about you and getting you in the best place possible. The next couple of bits, parts 3 and 4, are around marketing specifically. So I mentioned earlier, phase 1, starting, getting started, startup phase. I mentioned specializing be the most important thing. And when I started in 2008, from scratch, from zero, I had points 1 and 2 in place. I knew people in the industry, and you know, I'd learned a lot about mindset and performance and energy. The first thing I did, I was like, I got to create a profile for myself. Now, let me ask you something. Click the hand button if you can think of somebody right now in your industry who has an inferior product or service, i.e. they're not as good as you at what you do, but they've built a bigger business. They're quote unquote more successful. Just click the hand button, raise your hand. If you can think of somebody right now who has built a bigger business than you, they're more successful, but they're not as good as you at what they do. They're not as good at getting results. They're not as good a speaker, a trainer, a coach. Their product, their service isn't as good as yours. So quite a lot of you. I ask this question a lot, and ordinarily, you know, most of the people in the room raise their hand. Which, first of all, is frustrating, isn't it? It's frustrating, and it should be frustrating. So what I would put to you, though, is that in 99% of cases, the reason that the person you just thought of has built a bigger, more successful business, they're reaching more people, making a bigger impact, is because they've done a better job of building their profile. In other words, they're just better known than you. They've got a bigger following on social media. They've got a bigger database, a bigger audience. They've been in the game longer, so they've had more time to build their profile. So for me, I think in the expert business, profile is everything. How well known you are has a direct impact on how many clients, how many customers you can acquire, and also fees. The better known you are, the more you're going to charge. I'm much better known now in 2021 than I was in 2008. And so in 2008, when I started out and I was charging, you know, £800 a client was where I started. And, you know, now clients pay me up to £40,000 a year for one-on-one coaching. The major difference is my profile. That's why people are paying so much more now than they were back then. So for those of you that are in the startup phase, by the way, I didn't ask this earlier, maybe I should. In the chat, just tell me in one word, which phase are you at? Startup, growth, or scale? Which phase are you at right now? Like, which phase is most relevant to you? Startup, growth, or scale? I'm just going to give you a sec so I can see all the answers. Okay, so can see a lot of people in the startup phase, some in the growth phase. Cool. Yeah, good. So quite a lot in startup. So the reason I asked that question, I always like to check in, is because then I can tailor what I'm going to share with you to hopefully meet your needs based on what phase of growth you're in. So let's talk about profile and how it applies in the startup phase specifically. I'll talk a little bit about growth as well. So how profile fits in the startup phase. The best way for me to explain this is to tell you what I did in 2008. So I'd been working, as I said, I'd been working in sales for Andy Harrington's NLP training company. I'd got quite good at selling on the phone. I'd started doing some marketing for his company as well as part of my role, and some speaking. And so what I realized was I was quite good at taking a concept and then writing about it in a way that made people want to take an action, make a purchase, whatever. I got quite good at, I suppose, creating marketing materials. So writing emails or sales pages, that kind of thing. So rather than going out, when the time was right for me to go out on my own in 2008, I went, right, now I really want to go and start my own business. Rather than, I could have gone and started my own NLP training company. I had that skill set. I could have, I suppose, gone and become like a marketing and sales expert for NLPs and coaches or whatever. So, but what I did was I decided to become a real specialist. Like I mentioned, the young man earlier who's 18 years of age, Michael Keenan, who does Facebook and Instagram ads for scalp micropigmentation clinics, and he's doing multi-six figures a year in revenue. what I did at the start was I said, right, I'm going to start providing a service called writing copy, email campaigns, sales letters. In fact, I think Simon was actually one of my early clients, if I remember rightly, Simon. I think I wrote some copy for you in the early days, if memory serves correctly.
Yeah, that's true. You did.
Yeah, I thought there was you, there was Andrew Reynolds, Andy. There was a few people that I knew. Like I said, I had a good peer group, so that's how I got my start really. But I think I got those opportunities because I had a very niche skill set. In other words, I was writing email campaigns and sales letters, copy, if you like, for people. I mean, I marketed it originally to NLPers and coaches because that was the people I knew. And then I started to acquire other clients, people like Simon, who were speakers, who taught internet marketing stuff, that kind of thing. But to start off with, it was really specialist. It was like writing these marketing materials, creating these marketing materials for NLPers and coaches. So here's why this worked so well. I didn't have a website. I didn't spend any money on advertising per se. I didn't really have a market. I didn't have a funnel. I didn't really have a marketing strategy. But what I did was I bought tickets and attended NLP or coaching conferences. So let's say, for argument's sake, I go to an NLP conference and there's a couple of hundred people there. I pay maybe £100 or £200 for my ticket. I go to the conference and guess what? There's 200 people there. They're all NLP practitioners, master practitioners, trainers. They're all my ideal client. So in the breaks, at lunchtime, whatever, at the bar in the evening, I meet people and I say, so what do you do? And they go, oh, I'm an NLP practitioner, master practitioner, trainer. I do, therapeutic work on helping people overcome, release trauma or, hypnosis on stop smoking or those kind of things. I was like, oh, fascinating. They go, what do you do? I go, I create marketing materials for people who need to get more clients for their NLP or coaching business. And invariably they would go, I need you. I need your help. Where have you been all my life? Like I really struggle with that bit, the marketing bit. I'm great at delivering the service. I'm great at helping the client get the transformation, but I don't really know what I'm doing from a marketing point of view. So I would spend 100 or 200 quid on a ticket to go to these events, and I'd come back with thousands of pounds worth of clients. But I wouldn't have been able to do that if I wasn't establishing myself as a specialist. If I was just a marketing agency and I did a bit of everything, I did a bit of tech and a bit of design work and built funnels and wrote copy and video marketing, all of these things, it would have been a lot less impactful. The reason it worked is because I had a specific skill set that they did not have, and it solved a problem that they did have. So I believe at the startup phase, the key to building your profile is to, as I said, be a real specialist, work out who your client is, what their biggest pains are, what skill set you've got that can really help them. And then I know that some of you are in that growth phase. So what happened, which was almost by accident, is because I was a specialist, I started getting invited to speak at these events. They were like, well, our audience need to learn how to write emails or write sales letters and craft their marketing message. And you do that for NLPs and coaches. So could you do a slot and speak at our event? So really by accident, I started getting opportunities to speak on stage. And of course, then my business grew because I was getting the message out to more people. So I believe that if you're looking to, a lot of times people say to me, oh, I really want to get on your stage, Nick, to speak at your Expert Empires events alongside some of these, world famous speakers like Simon Coulson and Gary Vaynerchuk and Grant Cardone and so on. The reason, because I do select other speakers who are maybe not household names, but ordinarily the speakers I select are those that have got specialist talks that they can teach something very unique that a lot of other people can't. And if I'd have just been another marketing guy, well, they're 10 a penny. But because I was specialized in copy for NLPs and coaches, I got invited to speak at a lot of events, which raised my profile further, which attracted a lot more clients to me, which meant I could raise my fees, which meant I could then start teaching my own workshops, seminars, trainings, because I built a bigger audience. But all that happened because I started with a niched specialist offering. So, yeah, I think for most people, most experts, if you like, the biggest thing, the one thing that would make the biggest difference to their business is building the profile more. And again, I think if you're starting out and you're trying to be all things to all people, if you're trying to be, you know, a business coach or a property expert or a life coach or a personal trainer or any of these things, a marketing agency, it's very difficult for you to really get noticed in a crowded market. Whereas if you become a specialist, it's much easier for you to do that. And as I said, I started out writing copy. This was one of my first sales letters that I used to attract clients. Here's a great example. I said I wanted to give you a few examples. So I've got a couple of different companies, as I mentioned. One of them is a sales training company. So Expert Empires is my kind of main business, which is the business I'm best known for. And we run mastermind programs for people on various different stages of their journey, start, grow, and scale. In my other company, the Elite Closing Academy, it's a sales training company. This guy is actually, this is really recent. This was only a week or so ago. He, again, like most people, wanted to set up a business as like, you know, he built a bit of an Instagram following and he wanted to start teaching people about, you know, growing businesses. And what we realized is that, again, a lot of people are doing that. He's actually, throughout his life, throughout his career, he's struggled from being through school, through his career, to now running a business. He's been diagnosed with ADHD. So what he's done is he's become the coach for entrepreneurs with ADHD, because I mean, look, I don't know that much about the condition, about the problem, but what I do know is that people with ADHD, their brains work differently. Like, if somebody comes to me and they suffer with ADHD, the likelihood of my way of starting, growing, scaling a business, because I don't have ADHD, working for them is slim. If they go to Michael Clunan, this guy here that I've just shared his example with you, and he knows back to front and inside out the trials, the tribulations, the problems that people suffer with ADHD. Think about it. If you've got ADHD and you're looking for somebody to help you grow your business, are you going to go to the guy who specializes in helping entrepreneurs with ADHD, or are you going to go to the generic business coach? You're going to go to him, which is why, you know, he started now, as he's got more clarity on who he's serving and how he helps them get results, and he's marketing himself as the guy for people with ADHD, he's now starting to make sales. And so he literally just it was a brand new business, made his first sale. I think he's, I forget what he charged. I think it's something like £1,500 for a 3-month program, something like that. And he's made his first sale doing that recently because he's become a specialist. So yeah, Anwar, for clarity, I think the power, what I would call a super niche, Anwar, is when you niche the service and the group of people it's for. I think at the very least, you should focus on a specific group of people or a specific service. So I mentioned one of our clients, she specializes in teaching people how to get more leads through LinkedIn. Who it's for is not niched. It's just for anybody who wants to use LinkedIn better, business owners, salespeople, corporate companies, you name it. But she's an expert in LinkedIn, not all not all social media, not all digital marketing, not all marketing broadly, just LinkedIn. The power, if you really want to specialize to start with, is to go for she could have gone, I'm going to teach personal trainers how to use LinkedIn to fill up their gym. Or I'm going to teach corporate sales teams how to use LinkedIn to get more inbound leads. That would have been at the start, that probably would have had even more impact. She's now already a 7-figure business, so she's broadened out, of course. So I think, here's another great example. Again, I want to give you lots of examples of these niches so you can start thinking about what yours might be. This lady here called Jilly Woodhouse. Jilly she's pretty good when it comes to marketing and Facebook in particular. So she specializes in helping osteopaths with Facebook. It started off as just Facebook, and now it's kind of marketing and growing their business generally. And again, she went from making a couple of grand a month, kind of advising these kind of people, to 50,000 in her first year when she was working with us on this, implementing all these 8 things that I'm talking about here. She's actually now, this year, she's projecting to do £200,000, just around about £200,000 in revenue. And she's still just teaching and supporting osteopaths with their social media marketing. It's a bit more wide than social media marketing now, but osteopaths specifically. So she's a great example, again, Anwar, of somebody that's niched who it's for, osteopaths. And the service, which originally was Facebook, although it's now more broad as she's in the growth phase, not just in the startup phase. So again, Jilly's a great example of somebody that's established a profile using this approach that I'm sharing here today. The fourth, we've got 8 things we're going to cover. The fourth one is promotion. So think about points 1 and 2, performance and peer group. That's really about getting you in the best place possible. 3 and 4, profile and promotion. Now we're talking about marketing specifically. So profile is like your marketing message, what are you known for? Promotion is then what are you actually doing to generate leads, inquiries, create opportunities. So I kind of did these 8 things in this order, and I think that served me quite well, which is why I teach them in this order. So I mentioned that, you know, I started off as a freelance copywriter for NLPs and coaches. I got to a point though, which is the problem with specializing and selling at startup phase. The problem with that is it stunts your growth. And so I started to run out of capacity. I started to run out of days, you know, hours in the day or days in the week to either make sales or deliver for clients. And so I started to look for and search for ways that I could promote and market my business more broadly. And around this time, I started learning. I started going to the States a lot and learning from people like the first person I really learned a lot from is a guy called Dan Kennedy, who's like the godfather of marketing. You should definitely, if you haven't heard of Dan Kennedy, like when it comes to learning about marketing at a real kind of deep level, he's an absolute master. I learned a lot from a guy called Frank Kern as well, who was one of the early pioneers of like running product launches. So I invested a lot of time learning about promotion, about marketing from these people. So what I thought I'd do here is give you a real quick guide, because I know that all 8 of these things are important, but I know the thing that people want more than anything is just tell me, how do I get more leads? How do I get more inquiries? How can I build my database? So I've put a little kind of training within a training here when it comes to how to create powerful promotions. So it's actually, there's lots of tactical ways to apply this, but there's 3 key principles. The first one is, if you're going to create a powerful promotion, you've got to create something different to everybody else. Because look, there are so many right now, especially online trainings, events. There's so many experts on business growth, on marketing, on mindset, on health and fitness, on all these things, that it's highly competitive. So creating something significantly different at the start is key to creating a powerful promotion. Like, you can be brilliant at Facebook ads, you can be brilliant at building funnels, you can be brilliant at driving traffic, but if the thing that you're promoting isn't significantly different, it's always going to be an uphill battle. So first of all, you've got to create something different. I'm going to give you, I've got a couple of examples to share with you in a moment of this, once I've shown you the three steps. The second thing is to focus on driving people to one place. That the amount of times I see people make the mistake where they like their marketing or promotional strategy is download my ebook, register for my webinar, join my Facebook group, book a call, there's so many different things going on that it's confusing, it's overwhelming for the audience. And certainly for me, even now, and bear in mind, you know, we've got we've got 21 full-time employees in our business. We've got 6 just on marketing alone. So we've got a lot of marketing stuff going on. But even now, we still find that when we focus all of our resource and attention on one campaign at a time, we always get a better result. So focus on one campaign, focus on driving people to one place, make it very clear. So like, for example, let's say you were trying to build up a Facebook group. That was a promotional strategy you were using. You were trying to do a challenge. The challenges seem to be quite big right now. So you'd effectively switch off all other promotional activity for a period of time, maybe for a week or so, and you'd focus on driving everybody to join that Facebook challenge. We certainly have had pretty good results doing this when it comes to our online trainings, webinars, things like this. Ordinarily, you know, we would have got pre-lockdown. This is so like 2019. We would normally have got maybe, I don't know, 300 or 400 people register for a webinar, an online training, and typically, you know, we might get 100 to 150 that would actually turn up. So knowing this, I was like, hey, I should follow my own advice, and I should really put all of our resource into and focus on one marketing campaign, one thing. And so actually at the start of March, it's probably April 2020, when we couldn't do live events anymore. Bear in mind, I'm a live events business, really. I went, right, we need to really nail the online event thing and webinar thing. So we did a campaign, and we switched everything else off and just did focused attention. And we went from, traditionally, remember, we'd normally get maybe 300 or 400 registrations. We did 2 online trainings, webinars in quick succession. The first one, I think we got, I'm going to say it was like 730 odd registrations. So like double what we would normally get. And on the second one, it was 918 or something, I think the number was. So almost triple the amount of registrations we get, because we focused on driving everyone to one place. So the thing, like the webinar in this case, or the Facebook group or challenge, or the ebook, or the whatever it is you're trying to get people to come towards you for, has to be something unique and different. The second thing is you focus on driving everyone to one place. And then the third step is use all of your available assets. And I think a lot of people forget, they don't realize how many amazing assets they've got. So these are the ones that we use primarily, and there are others, but there's probably 100 you could think of, but these are the ones that we use most effectively in our business. So when I'm doing a promotional campaign, I'm using these assets to drive people to one place, whatever that one place might be. So number one, email list. So I believe that even though, email open rates are dropping, and the competition for attention in the email inbox is higher than it's probably ever been, I still think email is a great marketing media and a great opportunity. By the way, click the hand raise button if you've got an email list, like you've actually got a list of people that you could market products, services, whatever it might be, out to. So yeah, interesting. So that's what I suspected, because a lot of you are in the startup phase. So a few have raised a hand, said, yes, you've got an email list. A lot haven't. So this is the point where I want to challenge your thinking. Every single one of you has an email list. You just don't think of it as an email list, because I guarantee that if you log into your Gmail, Yahoo, Outlook, whatever it is you use, you've got people that you've had interactions with, you've got email addresses there, and some of them, not all of them, but some of those people are people that would certainly benefit from your product, service, whatever it is that you're promoting. So you have got an email list, you just don't think you've got an email list. Same thing with SMS or text message marketing. So we do quite a lot with phone numbers. The main reason being, look, my background is telesales. That's where I started when I worked with Andy back in whatever it was, in my early 20s. And we've got a full-time sales team, 4 full-time salespeople here in our offices. So whenever we do any promotion, we always collect phone numbers so that we can follow up with people over the phone. But also when we're doing a big promotion, we don't do too much of it, we'll text people as well. So same thing, of course. I'm not going to ask the question again, but most of you haven't got a database of phone numbers that you could text or call. But when you think about it, you have in your phone, you've got, I mean, I don't know about you, I've got like 1,000 phone numbers in my mobile phone. A percentage of them, not all, but a percentage of them are business contacts, people that I've met at events, network with, clients, past clients, partners, you name it. So I've got a list of people in my phone that I could promote something to if it was relevant and appropriate. Direct mail, I've actually got a whole presentation on this alone, which again, all of these things are in their own right. I could do, you know, an hour or so teaching at a detailed level about email or direct mail or whatever. But direct mail, I think, is massively underutilized. I think sending a promotion out, good old snail mail in the post, when you think about how many emails you get in your inbox every day. There's some research done by a friend of mine called Ryan Dice, who, for me, he's like the #1 digital marketing expert on the planet. Created a company called Digital Marketer, runs an event in the States called Traffic and Conversion Summit, which I go to every year. Ryan Dice and his company have done some research, and the average person in, you know, the Western world, US, UK, in fact, let's have some fun. How many emails a day do you think the average person gets in their inbox? Just type in the chat. Give me a guess. How many do you think? Somebody says too many. So I've seen 10, 20, 30, 50, 100, 120. Let me see if what's the highest I've seen? 200. So the research which Ryan and his company have done is around about, I think it was 147 was the actual number, but it's like 150 roughly emails a day landing in the average person's inbox. So let me ask you another question. How many pieces of post do you get in the letterbox? Type in the chat. How many do you get a day? How many pieces of post do you get? 1, 2, 3, 4, not many, right? Most of you saying not many. So competition for attention in the email inbox is like higher than it's ever been. Competition for attention in the letterbox is actually decreased. If I'd have asked you those two questions like 20 years ago, I'm not saying it would have been opposite, but it wouldn't have been far off. Like you would have said, I reckon you'd have said double figures, like 10 pieces of post a day, lots of marketing coming through the letterbox, and a lot less email than you're getting right now. So I do a lot with direct mail. We send postcards out to promote our events. We send out like really substantial packages to promote and sell our mastermind programs, where we spend hundreds of pounds per package to send them out. Yeah, Ryan Dice is the guy's name. You should definitely check him out. For me, one of the smartest digital marketing experts on the planet. I need to get through these quick, so I'm wary of time. Facebook groups is another place. We've got, of course, over our two companies, we've got, I think, 4 different Facebook groups, free and paid, that people can become members of. And we use those groups to serve, of course, our community. And also we use those Facebook groups to tell them about events we've got coming up, about promotions we're running, about webinars, about things like that. So it's another way, another place that we can get the message out there. Facebook page. If you've got a Facebook page, we have not huge, we've got, I think 4,000 or 5,000 people that follow that page. We can promote there. And of course, if we want to, we can spend money to promote on the page as well and boost it. One thing I didn't mention is if you haven't got a Facebook group of your own, you could actually utilize somebody else's group. So go in there and create, I suppose, serve that group, ask questions, answer questions, interact, engage in that group. That's a place where you can build your audience and then, of course, create friendships, connections with them on Facebook, and then they could potentially become clients. Facebook profile, I mean, my Facebook profile is majority of the people that I'm connected with on my personal profile are business contacts, not personal friends. You could, of course, run paid advertising. So we do a lot on Facebook, spend quite a significant amount. It varies depending on whether we're promoting an event or not. But right now we're running an event, so we're probably spending £4,000 or £5,000 a week on Facebook. Google, YouTube, we've started doing some more testing on Google and YouTube in the sales training business in particular. So again, that's another way you can drive people somewhere. LinkedIn, definitely not my area of expertise, but especially if your ideal client, coming back to your profile, if the person you're trying to work with is a professional, maybe they're an executive in a corporate, or they're a lawyer, solicitor, that kind of profession, LinkedIn would be a great place for you to build an audience and start using LinkedIn to drive people to your promotions. Instagram, again, certainly if you're in the health fitness space, if you're in an industry where visual is important, then Instagram's a great place for you to do that. And then finally, one of my favorite is joint ventures. And the reason it's one of my favorite is because you could do a joint venture. In other words, you could partner with somebody else on any or all of the above 9 ways. So for example, Simon and I have done joint ventures over the years. And I suppose me being here today is a bit of a joint venture. It's a way for me to build my brand, gain exposure to an audience of people that might not already know me. And Simon speaks on stage at some of my events, and that's an opportunity for him to get exposure to my audience. So joint ventures are a great way for you to share audiences of email list, of text message, of direct mail, of Facebook, of LinkedIn, of Instagram, of all these different places. I really believe that collaboration trumps competition every time. And if you can find people that you're aligned with, that you can collaborate with, then you'll be able to, your promotions will be a lot more successful. Remember, there's 3 things when it comes to building a successful promotion. One, you've got to create something significantly different that isn't already out there. The second thing is you've got to focus on driving people to one place at a time. And then the third thing is use some, all, and other assets, traffic sources. These are the 10 biggest assets that I've built. But of course, many of you have got other assets outside of these as well, I'm sure. Here's a great example of somebody that's done this. So Tracy Cartland Ward, she built a successful property business of her own. She's a property investor. So she took this 3-step system and applied it to the letter. She created something different. She created a Facebook group for women who wanted to get started in property investing. So experienced investors, it's not for you. Men, it's not for you. Women only who want to get started in property. The second thing she did, so that destination, that was unique in itself. The second thing she did was then put all of her attention for 2 months on driving people into that group. So every Facebook post she did on her personal profile, everyone she'd built contacts with over the years in the property industry that were in her phone, she'd text them, she'd WhatsApp them, she'd email people. All of her attention went into building this Facebook group for 2 months. In the first 2 months, she got between 400 and 500 people to join her Facebook group, all women, all wanted to get started in property. And then what she did to monetize it was she went, right, I'm looking for a handful of clients, women getting started in property, to work with me one-on-one. And I'm going to coach you over a 12-month period to get your first deal and then start building your portfolio and start building wealth through property. Out of those 400 or 500 people, she had over 50 people inquire about one-on-one coaching. It says here, 44 calls, so 9 cancellations. But so she had, 53 people say, yeah, I'm interested. She spoke to all of them personally and managed to get, in the end, it was 26 purchased at $5,000. So she did 110,000 was what she posted in our Facebook group. But in the end, it was 120, 130,000 pounds just from doing these 3 steps. Now, most coaches, most experts, most people who are getting started aren't able to get a result of that significance because they don't create something different. They don't put all their attention on one thing at a time, focusing on driving to one place. And of course, bit we haven't talked about yet is they don't know how to monetize it. So she's a great example of somebody that did that. I mean, literally 6-figure business built in 3 months from scratch using that promotional strategy. Number 5 is packaging and pricing. So again, I guess the thing that Tracy did brilliantly was she created a coaching program, 12-month coaching program, $5,000, which by the way is probably not expensive enough, but she was testing it for like a new thing. So I think getting the package right and pricing it accordingly. There's so many people that are selling coaching by the session, or that are trying to build a expert business by selling a low ticket online course. And it's so much more difficult to build a business when you're selling, when you need volume. The hardest thing to do in business is to get a new customer. So if your success or failure is based upon your ability to get a large number of new customers, if you're selling a low price product, then you're making it more difficult than it needs to be. So if you can create a package and price it accordingly where you don't need to make lots of sales, it becomes a lot easier because you don't need a lot of customers. So when I started, like I told you, I started out with my offer was, I'll write a sales letter for you and it cost £800 for me to do that for you. So I only needed like a few clients a month in order to make enough money to live on. I mean, not enough to retire on, but to live on. You know, I got to the point where I was getting 4 or 5 clients a month. So I was making enough to live on pretty quickly. Whereas if I'd have created a product that I was selling for 50 quid, I needed to make a lot of sales to make the same amount of money. So I think in the startup phase, as many of you are at that phase, the way that you package your expertise together and price it is critical to your success or failure for sure. I think we need to get our skates on here because of time. So number 6 is pitching. So actually making sales. So how do you sell and close people to purchase your product or service? Once you've got, think about 5 and 6 together as sales. So 1 and 2 is about getting you in the best place. 3 and 4 is about marketing. 5 and 6 is about sales. Think about it that way, the structure of this model. So I became fairly good at pitching, at selling, because of the experience I had working in sales in that job that I told you about before with Andy. But where it really started to take off, by like 2014 was the first year we did 7 figures in revenue. And we kind of got stuck again for a few years. In end of 2017, I bought in a guy called Matt, who Simon actually knows, Matt Elwell, who's my business partner in the Elite Closing Academy, my other business. And I brought him in to effectively to train. I was quite good at selling and closing, but my sales team were underperforming. And so by getting them to be really, I was good at selling one-to-one over the phone or in person, but there's only so many hours in the day. There was only so many conversations I could have. So as I started to build my sales team, I needed to get them to be as good as well. And so Matt came in and trained them on how to sell and close one-to-one, which massively increased the scope for us being able to grow the business. So when I talk about selling and closing, there's normally 3 ways that you can do it. And they're relevant to your phase of growth. So in the startup phase, your sales, your pitching strategy should be you're selling one-to-one, over the phone, over Zoom, face-to-face meetings. You're the person doing the selling and the closing. In order to grow, and by the way, the mistake I think people make is they're trying to do webinars and sell online when they're in the startup phase. In the startup phase, like in effect, make some phone calls, knock on some doors, DM some people, see if you can make some sales one-to-one. To grow though, that'll only get you so far. To grow, you need to adopt what I then call a one-to-many approach to selling. So doing webinars, selling online, running workshops and events, which is what I'd done quite well to get my business to kind of like multi-6, 7 figures. But I'd not nailed the phase 3, which is to get other people to do the selling for you. And that could be, of course, a sales team like we've got in-house. It could be affiliate marketing, that kind of thing. But getting the many, what I call many to many. So the three different approaches for pitching and selling are one-to-one. You do all the selling yourself, one-to-one. One-to-many, you still do all the selling yourself, but you do it to groups of people. And then many-to-many is you're not the one doing all the selling yourself. And really, when you've nailed many-to-many is when you've got other people doing one-to-many for you. So, for example, Matt would be the example in our business. He can speak and sell to an audience, so he can one-to-many sell without me having to be there. So how you pitch and how you sell, really, really key. And actually, Matt is one of the speakers at our Expert Empires Global event next month. So he's actually going to teach how to sell one-to-one, how to have conversations that convert and do it in a non-sleazy way. It's what he does best, I think. He's not only has those sales conversations, but he's got a really, really great framework for teaching people how to sell and close as well. By the way, I forgot to mention Ryan Dice, who, like I said, is for me the #1 digital marketing expert on the planet. He's speaking at our Expert Empires Global event next month as well. So what I'm giving you here is an overview, of course, of all the key ingredients that I think it takes to start, grow, scale an expert business. And at our event next month, Expert Empires Global, we've got speakers coming in to teach detailed workshops on each of these 8 things so that you can really get a plan together of how you can start, grow and scale fast. This is a great example of pitching one-to-many. So Rolf, this guy called Rolf Stauffer, is based in Switzerland, and he's a golf coach. So we've talked about a lot of different expert types of businesses: health, fitness, business growth, mindset, investing. Rolf teaches people how to play better golf in Switzerland. And so he was doing one-to-one sales and doing okay. He was making 70 or 80,000 a year selling and delivering golf coaching one-to-one. And the big shift for him, he's now doing, I think last year he did about 330,000 in sales. And the way that he did that, how he managed to grow it, was pitching one-to-many. So instead of having one-to-one sales conversations, he brings people into a small event, so like 30, 40 people a time. And right now, of course, he's doing them online because of lockdowns and stuff. But he started selling one-to-many. So this was actually a WhatsApp he sent to me last year. And what he did, this was during lockdown, he managed to he only had 24 people in the room at an event over 3 days, but he did, you can see here, he did 45,900. This is Swiss francs, he's based in Switzerland. So it's about 40 grand, I think might be a little bit less, maybe 38, 40 grand pounds in revenue from nailing the one-to-many pitching and selling strategy. So again, depending on what phase of growth you're at, he was one-to-one selling got him to 70,000 a year, but he wasn't going to be able to go to 6 figures to multi-6 figures without a one-to-many pitching strategy. So 5 and 6 together is sales. And now the final 2 things I'm going to talk to you about briefly are really operations, as I call it. So number 7 is personnel. So again, I think this is probably most relevant for those that said they're at the growth phase. And certainly if you are at the scale phase, bringing people in to do a lot of the tasks in your business. So bringing in people to make sales so you don't have to do it yourself. Bringing in people to run the marketing so you don't have to do it yourself. Bringing people to do customer service, admin, coaching. All of these things are necessary if you're really going to grow and scale. So I'd say a mistake I see people make in the startup phase is they're trying to bring people in too early. I actually think it's appropriate for you to be the person who does everything I just mentioned: sales, marketing, delivery, customer service, bookkeeping, all of it. I think it's appropriate for you to do that at the startup phase. One of my biggest advantages, I always say this, my biggest advantage, ironically, in 2008 was I didn't have any money. When I started my business, I didn't have any money. If I'd had a lot of money, like let's say I'd, inherited a load of money, or let's say I'd been made redundant, I got a check or whatever. If I'd have had a lot of money, I probably would have wasted it on building a fancy website, on getting a nice office, on staff, on paid advertising. Because I didn't have any money, I had to bootstrap it. I had to use a lot of the strategies and tactics I've shared with you here today to get my first batch of clients. And only when I was at the point where I was bringing in, you know, £4,000, £5,000, £6,000 a month, did I then start taking some of that money and reinvesting it. Once I reached capacity where I was like, right, this is insane. There aren't enough hours in the day, days in the week for me to do all the sales, marketing, delivery, customer service, everything. Once I got to that point, I then hired a part-time assistant to do admin, customer service, organizational stuff, because I wasn't very good at that anyway. You know, part-time, 15, 20 hours a week, £10 an hour. And what that meant was I effectively, for £10 an hour, I was buying back 15 or 20 hours a week of my time, and I reinvested that time in what I was good at, marketing and sales, which was revenue generating activity, which helps grow the business. So I think, again, bringing people into the business, staff, or outsourcing certain disciplines, certain tasks, certain responsibilities is a good idea at the right time. By the way, something I haven't said yet, which I normally do, is with all of these key elements, by the way, I think if you're going to start, grow, scale an expert business to 6 to 7 figures, you need to master all of these 8 areas. Really the question is, in all of these areas, there's so many different things you could do. Think about promotion. How many different marketing tactics are there that could use? Hundreds of different strategies and tactics. So the question is, what's the right one, or what are the right ones for you right now? Given what you're world class at, given the industry you operate in, given the resources you've got or haven't got available, what's right for you right now? For me, that's the definition of strategy. The definition of a strategy is knowing what to do and when is the right time to do it. And I see a lot of people doing the wrong thing at the wrong time, or even the right thing, but the wrong time. There's a lot of great strategies that you could learn about marketing, about growing a business, but doing the wrong thing at the wrong time is what kills most people. So I think bringing in people, staff, outsourcing is definitely appropriate when you want to grow and scale. Certainly helped me when I brought in that person and I could spend more time on marketing and selling. And then the final one, and this is actually the one that I think is most important, to be honest. It's hard for me to say that because they're all critical. But the planning process. So in 2013, I'd managed to build the business to like mid 6 figures, not quite mid 6 figures, so probably like 350,000 a year. But actually between 2011 to 2013, that 3-year period, we'd only grown from like $250,000 to like 350,000. So we kind of stuttered and we kind of got a bit stale for a few years. And I thought, well, if I'm going to grow to, you know, high 6 figures, 7 figures, if I'm going to build £1 million business, I need to get better at marketing and selling. And so I spent so much time trying to learn that stuff. And in the end, as it turned out, what made the difference, in 2014, we did 7 figures for the first time. In 2015, we did, I think it was just shy of 3 million. The thing that made the biggest difference was planning, was the strategic planning process, was having a strategy, a focus. And I think a lot of times people struggle because they're confused and overwhelmed. There's so many different things. There's so many shiny objects. There's so many things you could do, you think you should do. You sit down in your workspace on a Monday morning and it's like, where do I even start? What am I doing today? What am I doing this week? What's important? So for me, a well-formed plan, I'm just going to give you a little bit on this before we wrap up. A well-formed plan has a balance between long-term thinking. So I think it's appropriate for you to think, if you're in the startup phase, I think you should have a goal for the next year. If you're already a bigger business, so we've got very definite goals for our business for the next 5 years. So the bigger you are, the longer term you should think, but you should definitely have a vision, a big chunk goal. some people are really good at that. Some people are big thinkers, they're visionaries, but they struggle when it comes to the detailed day-to-day stuff. I'm curious who can relate to that. Who's great at thinking big, but not so good when it comes to the like here and now? What tactics are we going to deploy? Like you struggle with focus day-to-day. Who's got that going on? Just click the hand raise if that's you. You're good at thinking big, but not so good at the day-to-day tasks and planning and being effective. Yeah, great. A lot of big thinkers. That's what I thought that would probably be the case. I'm curious, who's the other way around? Who's like, I'm really good at organizing my time day to day, but there isn't really, I don't really know where I'm going long term. Just click the hand button if that's you. Give me a little hand raise if that's you. You're really good at the detail, but not so good at the big thinking. So interesting. So slightly less in that camp, but here's the thing, you need both. I really believe that strategic planning requires being able to think big and think about what's your goal for the next year, the next 2 years, the next 5 years in our case. But then be able to manage the day-to-day tasks and responsibilities in a way that relate to those big picture visions, outcomes. So for me, that's where strategy comes in. I normally draw this up on a flip chart if I'm teaching this in a live room. So think about this. You've got at the very top of the page, it would say vision. This is big picture. At the very bottom of the page, you would have tactics. This is the detailed stuff. Gary Vaynerchuk calls this clouds and dirt. So the dirt is like roll your sleeves and get your hands dirty, doing the stuff day in, day out. The big picture vision, the bit that knits them together is strategy. And so for me, the planning process is about defining strategy. In other words, if we're going to fulfill our vision, our big picture goal, what are the priorities that we need to focus on? What are the key priorities? Like, what are the big chunks that are most important? And then how do we measure success in those areas? Once you've got that defined, then you can work out this week, today, this month, what are the tasks that need to be completed so we hit these numbers, so we fulfill our priorities, so we're on track for our vision. And so, again, we've got a whole process that we teach in our workshops for planning, for strategic planning, specifically, which was the difference. I know it sounds ridiculous. It was the difference between doing 350 grand in revenue in 2013 to doing over $1 million in revenue in 2014, to doing nearly 3 million in 2015, to doing tens of millions in revenue since then. The thing that made the difference. So I'd say this is crucial at every phase of growth, start, grow, and scale. But for me, not having it was the thing that prevented us from doing phase 3, which was scale. So hopefully you found this interesting, relevant. Like I said, I don't know if we've got time for questions.